Hello, and welcome to today's training where we are going to be talking all about the frozen shoulder. So, how I'm going to run the training today, I'm going to break it down into three different parts. First is what causes the frozen shoulder, which is an incredibly common condition, especially for women in midlife as they're entering perimenopause or menopause. Then I'm going to talk about the reasons why it happens, and then we're going to talk about the solutions. So talk about the things that you can do to either prevent it or how to improve it if you are already suffering from the frozen shoulder. Okay. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat box as usual. I'm going to answer them. But let's dive into it straight away. So, root cause of the frozen shoulder. I have coached 3 women in the last 2 years with a frozen shoulder. Incredibly common in women in midlife. I haven't actually heard of any men with a frozen shoulder, although somebody commented on the Facebook post that their husband is suffering from it as well. So clearly it's probably a bit of a midlife thing as it is. So what are the causes? Hormones and inflammation certainly play a huge part. I have been really keeping up with the research on the kind of the physical manifestations of the diminishing hormones in the female body and how it manifests as pains and aches in the joints or in the muscles and all these kind of pesky conditions like the frozen shoulder that pop up so often. So definitely diminishing hormones play a significant part. Also inflammation. So as we are aging, again, inflammation is increasing in our bodies, which obviously is causing all sorts of havoc in our bodies. And I follow quite a few doctors that specialize in perimenopause and menopausal health in women over on Instagram, and they talk about frozen shoulders quite often. One of them is an orthopedic surgeon, and they talk a lot about inflammation and how much we really need to fight it and what it does in the human body. But a lot of these doctors are forgetting to mention that frozen shoulder is ultimately a mechanical thing, okay? If you can't move a joint, and I should probably also talk about the symptoms of a frozen shoulder. If your joint can't move very efficiently, then there is clearly some kind of mechanical blockage. So imagine like cogs, in a machine normally move really well. As soon as something becomes kind of jammed up, it doesn't move quite well. So the main symptoms of frozen shoulder is lack of mobility. So I have a friend who is suffering from it, and she literally can only put her arm up to about here, okay? It is painful. Generally affects the shoulder. Yeah. So you just really lose your mobility, can't move it. Weakness as well. So really kind of extreme weakness in the arm. So significantly different if people only have it in one arm, then there is a significant weakness in the affected arm. Okay. So lack of mobility, pain, and weakness. And it sometimes gets so bad that people can't get dressed themselves, okay, which is just terrible and it's very debilitating. And if you are just in your 40s and 50s and you're suffering from this, it's really hard to keep kind of positive and upbeat about this, because the help that you can access, it's not always very good. Okay, so those are the symptoms of the frozen shoulder. So I mentioned that it is a mechanical issue. So I want to talk about where does the frozen shoulder start and what actually causes it. So it's called a frozen shoulder because the issue manifests itself in your shoulder, but it does not actually happen in the shoulder. The frozen shoulder is an issue of the shoulder blades. People look at the human body in isolation all the time. We think that we have 206 muscles, we had this many joints, we had this many ligaments and tendons. What people fundamentally don't understand that the human body works as a kind of synchronized unit. Everything is connected to everything, okay? And that is why sometimes you might get a lower back pain, but it's actually a hip issue. Sometimes you get neck pain, and then you actually realize that you've got locked up thoracic spine. So frozen shoulder, a lot of people look at it in isolation and think that the issue is in the shoulder. Yes, it manifests in the shoulder, but it all starts in the shoulder blades. And I know this from research. I know this from a phenomenal massage therapist who fixes frozen shoulders just like that. So even people who have had surgeries for frozen shoulder, surgeries don't work for frozen shoulder. Okay, they just don't. And she fixes them. So I had a really deep conversation with her about the mechanics and what happens in the upper body and how the frozen shoulder starts. And what she was explaining makes a lot of sense to me, because the shoulder works together with shoulder blades. It's just like it's the whole shoulder upper body girdle. Okay, so it cannot be looked at in isolation. So how does it start in the shoulder blades? Let me explain the shoulder blades. Okay, so obviously a massive crucial part of our upper back. The shoulder blades are not actually attached to anything. So normally the shoulder joint is obviously two bones attached together. Okay, the shoulder blade is a very unique bone. It's not attached with bone. It's only attached with muscle and other tissue, connective tissue. Okay, and to give us this incredible mobility in the thoracic spine and in the shoulders, the shoulder blades need to be incredibly mobile. So they kind of really, and then you can see it, you can kind of move around if you can. If you're locked up, obviously you can. So you have incredible mobility in the thoracic spine. So then we can do a rotation, we can move our shoulder in all these different directions. We need the mobility in the upper back. So Mother Nature designed the shoulder blades to be very fluid and kind of floaty and moving. But what happens, and generally I will explain the reasons why, the shoulder blades become quite stuck. Okay, so they can kind of adhere to the tissue underneath, to the muscles underneath. They also float to different places because obviously they're not attached, right? So often in people, and this massage therapist, Sabine, was telling me, sometimes I found the shoulder blades and they are all over the place. One is up, one is down, one is stuck, one sticks out. So often when you look at people's back, you can see that one shoulder blade sticks out more than the other. So those are all imbalances that will eventually lead to issues generally in the shoulders and the frozen shoulder. So why does this happen? This happens because of our modern lifestyle. Okay, so for a lot of people, it starts with bad posture. Yeah, this is the ideal scenario in terms of your posture. This is where most people are. Some people are even here. Okay, so that's immediately changing the alignment of your upper back. It's not straight anymore, but it's rounded. So the shoulder blades kind of go with the muscles, yeah, because you've got tight chest muscles and the muscles on the back elongate to allow that rotation. Because when you spend a lot of time in this, the muscles will kind of stretch to go with your body, and that is the position that you would adapt. Okay, so number one reason, and that's how it all starts, is generally bad posture. Okay, the second reason why is lack of mobility. So thoracic spine, which is this area around the chest, shoulder blades, and upper back, needs to be incredibly mobile, and that is how the human body works. Okay, so the human body works like a sandwich. The neck needs to be stable, thoracic spine incredibly mobile, lower back stable, hips very mobile, knees stable, ankles very mobile. If you upset this by locking some area, like when people have very tight hips, they will get sore knees or sore lower back. If you have locked up thoracic spine, then you will probably get pain in the neck or in the lower back. Okay. So the second reason is that you are not doing enough mobility movements like these or these. So then the whole area becomes locked. If you're not constantly removing the tension and the adhesions that the shoulder blades are kind of being sticking to, then they just become permanently locked in that position. Okay. So the second reason, and that's probably one of the biggest ones, is the lack of mobility. So people just simply not doing mobility for their thoracic spine. And I see it in my practice all the time. Sometimes I ask people to rotate and they can't. Yeah, they can't rotate without turning their hips as well. So they are missing a lot of thoracic rotations. And then when I ask them to do rolling shoulder blade, they simply can't do it. Okay, so first reason, poor posture. Second reason, lack of thoracic spine mobility. The third reason, and that is kind of my and Sabina's idea for why this happens predominantly in women, and it doesn't apply to all cases because I have had some very active, very strong women with frozen shoulders as well. But the third one is lack of strength. And that's why I think it sometimes happens more in women than in men, because men, even in midlife, tend to maintain a certain amount of upper body strength, whereas women don't. Okay. So unless you are doing targeted strength training for the upper body, you are missing strength in the muscles in the back. That means that instead of having a nice, and that's all kind of connected as well, because when you have poor posture, that means that you're not very strong. Okay. So strong body is generally in a really good alignment, and then the strong back muscles are able to support the shoulder blades. Okay. I was just thinking about another reason and then just kind of skipped my mind now. Anyway, it will come back to me. Okay. So these are the three main reasons: poor posture, lack of thoracic spine mobility, and lack of strength in the upper body. Okay. Oh, the fourth one. Yeah, I remembered. Poor biomechanics. Okay. So that is probably the kind of third and a half reason. Okay. People don't understand how to use their shoulders properly. All right. So instead of knowing how to stabilize the shoulder by using all the muscles on the back, including the serratus at the front and the core, and are basically just using the shoulder joint in isolation. Okay. So I see it with surfers. I see it with weightlifters. I see it with most people that are using their arms. You know, it's they're doing overhead press and it's here, rather than knowing how to lock the lat, the rhomboid, the trapezius as well, and here the serratus. And I'm going to talk about the serratus a little bit more. They don't know how to lock it. Yeah. So this is what an overhead press should look like. For most people, it look like this. I see it on surface as well. They pedaling with their shoulders. What they don't understand, they need to pedal with their upper abs, the serratus, and the back muscles. Okay. So poor biomechanics certainly play a huge role as well. And sometimes there's a combination of all four for people that creates the perfect storm. And then the frozen shoulders start brewing. Okay. So poor shoulder mobility is probably the first sign. Okay. If you don't have a very good shoulder mobility, therefore, like if you can't put your arm overhead 180 degrees, so completely straight without arching. Yeah. And this is really good to test on the floor. So when you lie down on the floor, I want you to push your lower back into the ground firmly and see if you can raise both of your arms overhead. Now, your lower back must not leave the ground. That is a very good test to determine whether you have some missing range in your shoulders. Okay. Maybe I'll just show you so then I don't have to explain it over and over. Okay. So you're going to lie down. Yeah. You don't have to straighten your legs. Push the lower back into the mat. Lie down. See if you can touch the ground behind you without releasing the lower back. The lower back must be firmly glued onto the ground, okay? So this, you should be able to touch the ground behind you. So that is like the simple, really simple test to determine whether you have already some missing range in the shoulders, okay? Second sign is obviously, do you have good posture? The third sign is, do you do some targeted strength training to strengthen your upper back? Okay, so those are the signs and those are the reasons why frozen shoulder starts kind of growing. And it's good to catch it at the beginning, okay? Because eventually, like a full-blown frozen shoulder, you can literally just go here, okay? So if you already have a limited range of motion and you feel quite tight in the thoracic spine, then those are the things that you need to really work on so they don't then get worse and result in a frozen shoulder, okay? So what are the exercises and what are the things you can do to either prevent it? And we kind of mentioned that a little bit, you know, good targeted strength training, mobility movements for the thoracic spine. But what other things can you do? The best thing, the number one top thing you can do for yourself to make sure that your shoulder blades are healthy and they are in the right place is hanging, okay? So literally loose hanging. So you grab something, whether you've got a pull-up bar in the gym, at home. Children's playgrounds are wonderful. When you're waiting for your children in the playground, go and hang, okay? Tree, anywhere that you can hang, and you're going to go into a dead hang, yeah? So not an active hang when you're like doing pull-ups. You're going to go literally into a dead hang, okay? So you want, and you would feel that incredible stretch. You literally want to, it almost feels like your shoulders are going to kind of come out of their sockets, okay? Full hanging is difficult, especially if you're lacking a little bit of upper body strength, but you don't need to fully hang without releasing your feet, yeah? So you can go on your tippy toes and hang, yeah? You can have as much weight as you want to as you're building your strength, because it's about wrist strength and grip strength as well. Still have your feet on the ground, yeah? Once you work out to fully hanging, fully hang. That just stretches all of the tissue underneath the shoulder blades, mainly the subscapularis, okay, which is the muscle that sits right underneath the shoulder blades, to which the shoulder blade often sticks, okay? So hanging, number one, the easiest thing you can do to prevent and improve your frozen shoulder is hanging, and making hanging a very regular part of your fitness routine. So find a bar somewhere, buy a pull-up bar, chuck it over your doors, have it at home somewhere, and hang, okay? And the other two we already talked about. Thoracic mobility, so movements like the rolling shoulder blade, the gunslinger, okay? All these movements that promote the thoracic spine rotation and promote the movement of the shoulder blades. Then work on your posture, okay? If you are over here, then you are just putting yourself at a greater risk of developing frozen shoulder. So stretch your chest, lie down on the ground at the end of the day if you need to. And, you know, I spend a lot of time on the computer too. I get it. But it's about not just making excuses, well, I just have to work at the computer. Well, you need to do some work to kind of compensate for being stuck in those positions for long periods of time, okay? So if you've got already bad posture and you know that your head is forward and your shoulders are rolled forward, then you need to be stretching your chest and strengthening the back. Yeah, which leads us to targeted strength training. You need to strength train, and you need to focus on your back and on your core, on your abs and on your glutes, okay? That is going to also prevent the frozen shoulder. And that's kind of pretty much about it. I have had my client Suzanne, who was doing my mobility program for other reasons, but she had frozen shoulder at the same time. And after 3 weeks of doing daily mobility, we're talking 10 minutes a day, her physio could not believe how much more range of motion she had in her shoulder when she saw him. Okay. I had lots of other clients with frozen shoulders. Hanging, strengthening, and mobility work as a prevention or to improve it. Surgeries don't work. Okay. Now, I don't want to put you off, because obviously, if you are under care of orthopedic surgeon and they are recommending surgery, if that's what you believe in, go for it. I have met 5 people who had surgeries, and Sabina as well in her practice, who had surgeries for frozen shoulder, and none of them fixed it. Okay. Because it's just an adhesion. There's nothing you can go and start incising in there. Okay. It is purely the shoulder blade being stuck in different places or being stuck onto some tissue and it doesn't move. Okay. I've mentioned the subscapularis. So subscapularis is a small muscle that sits underneath the shoulder blades and helps it move. Okay. Because obviously the shoulder blade on its own can't move. It's a bone, right? It needs to be moved by muscles. And the subscaps are the muscle that move the shoulder blade. And they are usually the ones that get really grumpy, really tight, and they kind of affect the whole movement of the shoulder girdle, the shoulder blade girdle. Okay. The annoying thing about the subscapularis is that you can't access it on your own. Okay. 95% of all muscles you can access, and you can release them with golf balls or tennis balls, foam rollers, whatever you have on hand. The subscapularis is accessed through the armpit. So my crazy massage therapist actually releases her own by like sticking a broomstick in the corner and then digging around in her armpit. It sounds kind of heroic. So you need to find a very good deep tissue massage therapist who knows how to release the subscaps. It's uncomfortable. They will generally dig around really deeply in your armpit, and they need to be doing manipulations while they're holding on to it. Okay, so I can kind of almost access it now. Okay. And then you manipulate it. All right. So if you have a good massage therapist and you know that you're locked up, you know you already have a frozen shoulder or the beginning of it, find someone who knows how to release the subscaps. Okay. Because it will help immensely. And I have gotten locked up before. It's not pleasant, the releasing of the subscapes, but you will notice an immediate relief from kind of that tension and the restrictions. So a good, qualified, knowledgeable massage therapist that digs around in your armpit, does manipulations, and you can leave the office and suddenly you've got so much more range of motion in your shoulder. Okay. So that's probably the other thing I want to mention is the subscapularis, and finding someone who understands how to release it and how to manipulate it. You need to manipulate it. They need to be doing some manipulations while they're holding on to the muscle. That is the thing that works. Okay. So I can't help you with the subscape massage. You need to find someone for that. If you need some thoracic spine mobility movements, please get in touch. I can send you my free mobility challenge or some other videos so you can start doing that. I can obviously help you with strengthening the upper back. And I found obviously that the steel mace is a wonderful functional tool that really promotes the health and the strength and the mobility in the shoulder and the shoulder girdle. Okay. So, what I love about the mace, obviously you can be doing weighted mobility. So you're promoting that thoracic spine mobility, you're building strength at the same time. You can do some overhead presses to build strength in the shoulder and using mindful biomechanics. And you can also do some, do I fit? You can do some single armed work as well to really promote the strength and condition the serratus. The serratus is a muscle that really supports the shoulder blades, okay? The serratus is that kind of lovely muscles that on very cut men is those kind of lines going that way, okay? And the serratus forms a band here and it stabilizes the shoulder blade. So every time you're doing any upper body movement that involves your shoulder, you need to lock the serratus, okay? I have learned this from an old surfer that I was surfing with, that we were talking about how, you know, when you pedal, you should be using your lats. And he said, no, you should be predominantly using your serratus. And that has changed my surfing. That has changed the way I look at any upper body movement that involves the shoulder. Yeah. So every time I'm pressing overhead, I make sure that I'm loading the serratus, that I feel tension here, I feel feedback, and then I am firmly locking the serratus, because that is the protective band, the protective muscle band that stabilizes the shoulder blades. Yeah. Shoulder blades obviously can't do a lot of work because they're just floating around. So nature has designed something to support that, and the serratus is that. Okay, so not only the back muscles, but also the serratus that kind of goes in here and stabilizes the shoulder blades. Okay, so steel mace obviously a phenomenal functional tool to promote mobility and strength and mindful mechanics of the upper body girdle. So let me know if you want. I've run lots of free training with exercises as well. And obviously I have the Warrior Woman program, which is the step-by-step, completely comprehensive steel mace program, which will definitely help. But concentrate on mobility, and let's not forget the hanging. The most important thing you can do is to start hanging, dead hang, okay? That will get that sorted. So if you have any questions about this, if you are suffering from frozen shoulder or someone close to you does, let me know if you need some additional resources and you need some support. Obviously, I use this with discretion as well. I'm not a qualified physiotherapist, nor am I a qualified orthopedic surgeon. So if you are under care of these professionals, then obviously just do what needs to be done. I know from experience that these professionals don't do much. And certainly someone commented that after physios, it kind of gets a little bit better, but then it goes back to what it was before. And that's what I found is the issue with physios. Altogether, they tend to kind of help you short term, but they generally don't tend to solve the issue long term. Okay, but take this only as an advice. I am not a qualified medical professional nor a physiotherapist, so I obviously cannot be responsible for lack of results or if you do something incorrectly and hurt yourself. Okay, so take this with a pinch of salt. Obviously, I'm just talking from experience. I'm talking with from 10 years of experience and knowledge and skills that I've acquired, and I've also tapped into the knowledge and skills of someone who's been doing this for a very long time and who has really phenomenal success with frozen shoulders, which is what I have not seen from other professionals as well. So that's just a little disclaimer. This is not to replace surgery or anything that is in your healthcare plan, okay? If you have any questions, please get in touch. I have seen this before. I see what works. I can give you some advice and some support, because having a frozen shoulder, it's not pleasant. It's usually an issue that drags on for a very long time. It's an incredibly debilitating thing where you really lose mobility and you lose your quality of life, and you just cannot enjoy doing everything freely as you should. And as our hormones are not really playing ball with us, and it's slightly against us with the diminishing estrogen and increasing inflammation, I understand that it's a challenging time in any woman's life. So trying to prevent it and cultivating your mobility and physical strength will definitely improve your chances of never getting a frozen shoulder, hopefully, in your life. Okay, so keep the questions coming if you're watching the replay. keep the questions coming. I'm just going to have a look if there is any. No. But I'll be checking in later. And if you need to reach out, just send me a message. So I'm going to conclude our training on frozen shoulders, and I will see you next week for more training. Ka kite.